DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
The last round of autumn internationals wrapped up over the weekend. There's just one international match left for the season, and that is Ireland-Australia next year. No Grand Slam for Australia. They got well beaten by Scotland this morning. Wales have lost every single test match this year. Does Warren Gatlin keep his job? The Poms finally got a win, and the All Blacks patchy and scratchy against Italy. Chris Jones, Times Online, RugbyPass joins us. Welcome back, mate.
Good to be with you, Marty.
Lot to unpack there. Let's start with the Oz, because last week I was all over the Grand Slam train and I was hoping that they'd win this game and then send it to Ireland with so much to play for in the last one, but yeah, just didn't really come up to it, did they?
Now, they weren't helped by the fact that snow stopped them having a sort of pre-match training session. The gods were against them in Scotland. They had a whole series of injuries as well and late withdrawals, and they looked like a team that had peaked, you know, in those matches against England and Wales. So they'll have half a slam. They won't do the full slam.
Right.
And they will go to Ireland. Well, if they got players who can make up 15, they'll play in Ireland. They'll lose there as well. But it's been great to see Will Skelton back. Boy, has he made a big impact for them, as you'd expect. And you know what? Picking players from overseas, you All Blacks really should think about doing that, as Robbo only mentioned in Italy.
Yeah, it's something that has been bubbling away here for a long time, and the more you think about it, the more you think it's got to happen at some stage. So where do we put Aussie now? After all the hope after those two wins, does it sit Joe Schmidt right back to where he started?
Well, it saves the Lions tour, that's for a start. I mean, the tickets have been flying out of the ticket offices before this, but now actually it's going to be a series which is going to be well worth watching. Before it looked like, is there any chance we could switch this and play New Zealand or South Africa because the Aussies were in such a state? But good old Joe, one of your exports has done well again, and he's got them playing some really nice stuff. Unfortunately, they just ran out of gas in this game against Scotland, who actually played quite well, which allowed them to finish their campaign well. But if you're looking at the world rankings, it really is in three stages now. You've got the top four of South Africa, New Zealand, France, and Ireland.
Clearly,
and then Australia now are very much stuck in that middle bit with England, Scotland, and Argentina. They're not good enough yet to break into the top four, but they're not in any danger of going any lower, which at one stage looked a possibility.
So you'd say Argentina are kind of close and a very good fifth at the moment, but there's probably a gap between them and everyone else, isn't there?
Yeah, it's so difficult to say where are England because some of their defence has been absolutely shambolic. Bringing in Joel Abb to be their defensive coach, basically in the middle of an autumn series, after they somehow misplaced Felix Jones, which takes some doing. When you lose a World Cup winner whose blitz defence was so important, that was a complete shambles for England. They still don't look like they can defend. They can score a few more tries, but they haven't decided who their number 10 is. That sounds familiar to All Blacks, doesn't it? Who is the number 10?
That's right, yeah.
You'd have to put England below Scotland now, and Australia would be sort of vying with England to try and put some pressure on Scotland and Argentina in that second tier. But it very much is a second tier.
Chris, don't tell me that Trezuku, Eddie Jones's plan to play super fast rugby against England didn't work. I mean, where does that leave him now? They've been belted twice by the Poms this year. Japan don't seem to have improved under him, do they?
Not at all. They are very much in tier two, and they somehow got a win against Uruguay, who have been doing all right. But again, Uruguay are not going to tear up any trees against the very best teams. Georgia and Italy would beat them. So I mean, Eddie's got an incredibly callow team. I mean, they had something like 200 odd caps at Twickenham today. There's probably more caps in the crowd, and you can't come to somewhere like Twickenham and try and compete against a tier one nation. And boy, he's given himself some dodgy jobs over the years, but this is probably the hardest.
What now for Wales and Warren Gatlin? After last week, he said, back me or sack me. What's that, 12 or 13 defeats in the year? Who's counting anyway? I mean, this is the only year that they never won a match was way back in 1937, and I'm pretty sure they didn't play 12 or 13 tests. There is a lot of excuses and a lot of explanations, but is he the guy that's going to still be coaching them come the Six Nations next year?
Well, the Welsh Rugby Union will give him his Christmas present early. Either it'll be the sack, or great news, you've got to continue with this lot.
Yeah, right.
He's won 18 defeats out of the 24 matches since he's come back for the second coming. 12 straight defeats, an entire year without a win, which is, Italy were the last to do that 4 years ago. it doesn't look great, does it? But when you look at the options and the fact that Wales, are having so many internal reviews, sacking their women's coach, deciding, have they got the right chief executive? They're having a review about the reviews.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah,
they'll
that
also
sounds
have
like New
another
Zealand
review,
rugby. Yeah.
which is your post-autumn test review,
Right.
in which they will decide whether they want to keep Warren. If Warren goes, I think they'll probably ask Steve Tandy, one of the members of the Scotland coaching team, to come along and take up the job. But would Steve really want to do it in a situation where, again, like Japan, there are so many young players in there with lacking any great experience, and there aren't the old heads like Jamie Roberts or Warburton in there just to hold the thing together. It's a really, really difficult job for anybody to take on. It may be that Warren just continues because basically, it's cheaper to keep him, and where else is he going to go? The Chiefs probably don't want him back, so where does he go?
Is that sound in the background that we're hearing? Is that Wayne Pivac saying, "Oh, wasn't that bad after all"?
Well, look at it. Yeah, hindsight's great for everybody in this coaching game, isn't it? It's a situation where you look around the world and think, well, who's got the best coaching setup? And you just scratch your head and think, what is Tony Brown doing with the South Africans? Because he has made such an impact. It's been a joy to watch some of the stuff he's done with them. And you're thinking, well, why isn't he coaching the All Blacks? Why isn't he coaching England? He could make a much better job of the England backs. I think his contribution to the autumn internationals has just been magnificent. And if I was to pick, I wouldn't pick a player of the series. I'd pick a coach of the series. And I think Tony Brown's been fantastic. Some of the patterns that the South Africans are delivering now are very worrying for every other nation when you think they've used 52 players.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
52 players.
Yeah, they've almost got three whole teams, haven't they? So, your biggest takeaway after all of this is that they are still the number one team in the world. They have lost twice this year. They've lost to Ireland and they lost to Argentina, but clearly they still are number one.
No other nation could try to make the number of changes to their team on a regular basis that Rassie has and still produce a quality of rugby which other nations struggle to live with. And it's some of the young players coming through have been absolutely fantastic. Others, including our old friend Manny, we still don't know about him, but he's at least given a chance. With England, there are a lot of good young players, and until they play Japan, you don't get a chance to play. And this is where development is, where the South Africans are so much further ahead down the road to the next World Cup. And it's going to take a very, very good team to stop them winning it yet again.
Well, is that the All Blacks then? Save the best to last. Certainly not our performance against Italy, which was scratchy, patchy, unconvincing. It looked like the end of a tour, didn't it? And the end of a very long season as well. I don't know what you can actually take out of that game. Look, the All Blacks won. They were always going to win, but it's not one that you'd ever watch on replay again, is it?
No, you wouldn't, unless you love scrums. And it's great to see that your power is now your scrum, because the back division is as clunky as it was at the start of the year. And I just can't see any major pluses there. You wonder whether, because Geordie has been so important to that midfield when you've been playing well, has he had this knee injury all through the year? Because he didn't play like Geordie when you needed him most. The centre partnership is open to question. The 10 is open to question. You've got some exciting back three players, but as a unit, as a cohesive unit, it's just so unlike the All Blacks to look so clunky.
Yeah, look, and especially as you say, when our forwards are dominating. I think most of us are really pleased with the pack this year. They're hard, they're tough, they play aggressive rugby, they win their ball, first phase, all of that. But an All Black backline, which you expect to explode, is just stuttered and puttered along. How do you look at the whole season for the All Blacks? I'm inching towards a B, but it could be a B minus. That's not a great grade for an All Black side in any year.
No. If I was giving them sort of marks out of 10, I'd give probably South Africa 8.5 to 9 out of 10. New Zealand 7s with Ireland probably, and France 8. France have come pretty good late into the year, and they again are discovering a lot of good young players. With New Zealand, there's a feeling of sort of treading water that, we know what your backs can do, and so does everybody else. And that's why you're going sideways in a Ray Wilkins type of attacking
playing
strategy.
the crab.
Where
Yeah, we
you
do.
just
We
go
crab.
crabbing back and forth,
across the field,
touchline to touchline.
Yeah.
But up front, you're getting fantastically quick ball. You're getting quality ball. You've got guys getting over the gain line. Sevilla's found in Satiti somebody who can be on his shoulder, who they can share the workload, and that's been really exciting to watch. You found a good young second row there who wins you some line-out ball. But I must say that except for South Africa, I think all the other major nations struggle at the line-out, and that's the one area of your set piece I think does need a lot of work, because that ball off the top, off the line, as you've seen from South Africa, they launch attacks in such a devastating way off quality ball, because they do have RG Snyman, who is 10 foot tall, so it does help.
Finally, look, a lot of publicity here, as you'd expect in New Zealand, with TJ Perenara and the start of the haka, Toitu Te Tiriti o Waitangi, forever the treaty. There's been a lot of protests, a big hikoi last week here in New Zealand about a bill which is trying to get through Parliament about discussing whether this is going to be the foundation document of the country. Sorry, I mean, to bother you with all of this. I mean, what I want to know, though, has it received any coverage up at your place, or is it just a big deal down here where we live?
It has received coverage because, it raised that question again about politics and sports. Should they be separate? Or when you've given such a platform as is created now for the haka, and we know it is world rugby's favorite thing, you're going to get a lot of publicity. And he's made a decision. He's made a conscious decision to do this. And, great. He stood up and said, this is what I think. Unfortunately, he's used a sort of a national platform which is not associated with politics. And this is the big problem. Should he have actually crossed that road and stood there on the other side and said, I'm going to use something which is so very important to us in our sporting psyche for a political statement? And I think that's very dangerous to start moving into that sort of ground. And I think that on reflection, you'll probably think, you know what, I could have probably done a better way than using the haka.
DSPN.